The Hogsty is brought to you by TicketClub.com, your one-stop shop for live events nationwide. Whether you're looking for game, theater, or live performance tickets, don't sweat it. TicketClub.com has you covered. So make sure you're going there for all your live entertainment needs, and make sure you're clicking over to them from the banner at the top of thehogsty.com.
The Hogsty presents It's Just Business with Steve Thomas and Rich Rogers. And now, here's your host, Chris Larry.
Hello and welcome to another episode of It's Just Business, the show where we look at the dollars and cents of the sports media industrial complex. I'm joined by my two intrepid commentators, Steve and John. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all that good stuff right in the late December season. How are you fellas?
Merry holiday year to you, Chris. Doing well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's doing all right. I'm recovering from the nightmare of another chaotic week of Redskins news. But beyond that, it's been good. Christmas in Texas, I suspect, is different than Christmas in the Northeast. I'm wearing shorts today. Hopefully I will be able to continue that. That makes me happy. But it's been all as well, coming to the end of another NFL season, heading into the dead zone. So we'll see what happens.
We actually had a white Christmas, so that's quite different from shorts in Texas.
I think, you know what, I haven't been outside yet today. I think it actually is a little bit colder, and I may have to go long pants, which, that bums me out. If I have to wear long pants on a weekend, it's a bad day. It's a bad weekend.
I subscribe to that as well.
Except you live in New York, so it happens quite a bit for you.
Yeah, but I am known to push the shorts boundary.
Listen, any day without pants is a fantastic day in my house. It's the fewer days with pants, the better. That's right.
I'm sure your kids feel the same.
Absolutely. No pants for anyone.
And speaking of constant Washington Redskins drama, I have really enjoyed the last few episodes of the Hogsty. I almost feel like when things get nutty, the show improves. So just want to say, Steve, to you and the gang, it's been a cathartic, funny, and informative listen the last few weeks.
Yeah, let me tell you, chaos with the Redskins is good media, okay? If they were just getting blown out by the Giants and being boring about it, it wouldn't be that fun. But, when you have, teams pimping out cheerleaders and you're cutting your best player and, you're firing people and all that stuff is just media gold. Keep up the chaos, Redskins, by all means.
Right. Be interesting if you're not going to be good.
There you go. If you can't be bad, what's the old Toby Keith line? In the song, if you can't be good at it. No, I'm not enough of a country fan to remember this. If you have to be bad, be good at it. That's what it is.
There you go. Well, that's
all right. Well, that's our motto here at IJB.
Yes, exactly. Although I might argue we're slightly more competent than the Washington football franchise.
That's a low bar.
I would argue my 1-year-old is slightly more competent than the Redskins franchise.
Oh, Lordy. Well, anyway, tune into the Hogsty to hear more on that. It has been an interesting and fun run for the show, at least on that front. But we're here to talk about different things, and one thing we're here to talk about is actually the NBA, the National Basketball Association. The NBA has owned, or at least has been vying to own, Christmas Day sports media broadcasting now for some time, and they actually just came off a pretty successful Christmas Day. They had their most watched Christmas Day slate of games in 7 years. It was the best since the lockout. If you go from 2016 to 2018, they've seen almost a 30% increase in ratings over 2 years on that day. They had a great marquee game with LA versus Golden State that really did pull the day along. But all down the slate, it was up on all accounts, all metrics, all demos, all happiness for the people at ESPN, ABC. Are they still called Capital Cities at their parent organization?
I don't think so.
No, it's Disney. Duh, it's Disney.
They're all owned by Disney.
Yeah, duh.
Yeah, haven't we talked? We talked for hours about this on the show.
I know, exactly. I'm back in the 90s with Capital
I've
Cities.
slept since then, yeah.
But anyway, so good day all the way around, every way that you want to measure it. The only my New York Knickerbockers were the only thing dragging it down, which was the lowest rated, which that set lows. So from that opening, after you just wipe away that opening game, the NBA had a great Christmas day. 2 questions I want to discuss on this segment. One, does the NBA now officially own Christmas Day sports broadcasting? And why do we think they're on the rise and having some of their best numbers in a while? Let's look at the conditions first. John, do you have an idea about why you think they had their best day in 7 or 8 years?
Well, what else is on? This is my question, right? So, I first of all, I think that the NBA has done a very good job of putting the anytime you get LeBron up against Durant, or these guys, you have some very key marquee matchups, which I think they did a spectacular, if obvious, job of scheduling those to fall on their big day. So I think that's one. You're always going to get a lot of viewers with that particular matchup. I think they were wise to recognize that and schedule that. But I think that they're on their way to capturing that day, sort of in the same way that the NFL has captured Thanksgiving. I think that Christmas is, there's a lot of fun in the morning, and then the rest of the day is kind of open to whatever people want it to be, and it hasn't really been defined culturally in the same way that Thanksgiving has become a food and football day. Christmas is a presents and what. And I think that the NBA is doing a very good job of capturing that.
Well, my number one question would be, and I don't expect you to have this right at your fingertips necessarily, Chris, but what happens to the ratings on years when Christmas is on a Sunday? In that it's an NFL day on top of that. Because my guess is that the NFL would completely trounce the NBA, when that happens. But I think I think the NBA actually does own Christmas. It's become a tradition. ESPN really pimps this, every year, in the weeks leading up to it. And so, I think they're intentionally positioning themselves to be NBA equals Christmas. Again, except for on Sundays, that's really what I want to know. What happens when you've got, the Patriots and, the Saints on Christmas Day versus the Lakers and the Celtics?
Steve, I actually do have some of those.
Oh, well, good. Well, lay it on me.
And this year, so you could probably look at the number one underlying reason for, their biggest ratings day in a chunk of time here was that they had actually 0 football competition for the day this year. Now, notice I didn't just say NFL. There wasn't a college bowl game or an NFL game competing on Christmas Day, which is a rarity, at least, especially when you add in, whatever random toilet bowl, might be happening in, late December. So, which we may be talking about in a little bit in a second. So if you look at that gives you a pretty good indication of why they had this jump. They had NFL competition the last 2 years, actually. And so they, just going against last year, they're up 15% from last year. And then, like I said, 30 over those 2 years. So you can start to see where where that jump was from. But not a huge, it's 15% is a pretty good jump, but from last year. But they held their own last year. And they also, remember, one of the things that they've done is they've covered the day, as John said. I mean, I think that first tip-off is what, like 12:15, or like it's pretty early in the day. So even when they've got football competition, they got to go from noon to midnight. So like they kind of go for quantity over quality, even when they're going up against the NFL.
So here's and I think that's part of it. So the early game is now, you don't want to put your primary matchup on the early game, because that's when people are still going to be engaged in Christmas dinner or opening presents or whatever they're doing sort of at the early part of the day. So I think you guys raised a really good point, which is that if it's not Saturday or Sunday, what is it, right? And Thursday is a football day now as well. So my question is, where is the NHL on this? Because it seems to me that's the other sport that is active in the winter, is happy to schedule games whenever they want to throughout the week. And that's really what NBA has going for it in terms of Christmas, is that Christmas is always a schedulable day for the NBA. They're not stuck to a weekly cadence. And the NHL also has the same quality. So why do you guys feel like the NHL hasn't made the same push to capture that day? Is it not late enough in the season to be marquee, or where are we there?
It's because the NHL isn't nearly as popular in the United States as the NBA. That's why. I mean, a fraction of the people watch the NHL and are NHL fans. For every Chris who's a big NHL fan, as you've talked about on the air, there are 5 people who are big NBA fans. That's a big part of it.
That is the predominant part of it. The other part is, the strategic part of it, in terms of where the NHL is coming from, is they made a strategic choice to own New Year's Day with the outside game.
Is that
and
the outdoor?
The Winter Classic. So they made a strategic choice for and they put other marquee games on, and so they're trying to build something, and fairly successfully. It was definitely a thing that helped them out of their own lockout. Is just making a strategic choice to focus that energy on New Year's Day.
Doesn't college football do New Year's Day though?
Yeah, but they've gotten away from it a little bit in recent years because of the college football playoff system, and which we'll get to. The other thing about this year's NBA Christmas Day thing is that they had a big marquee matchup, a much better one than normal. Anytime, and I'm a Laker fan, okay, just full disclosure, but anytime the Lakers are good, it's good for the entire NBA. They're one of the few franchises. If the Lakers and the Knicks are both good, and the Knicks haven't been good in a generation, practically. But
Patrick Ewing.
If those two franchises are good and in the forefront, it's good for everybody in terms of ratings. And the Lakers have the biggest star in basketball in LeBron James, and he was matched up against the reigning three-time defending NBA champions. They're not three-time defending. They lost the one 2 years ago. But regardless, they're in the Warriors dynasty up against the LeBron James led Lakers, who were winning, is ratings gold automatically. And that's another thing. So it's a confluence of circumstances to why the ratings are up. It's the Laker matchup. That game, do you have that rating, that overnight for that rating?
Give me a second. Keep going.
Yeah, okay. All right. So that game had big ratings. And it's the primetime game. What were they, Chris?
It was a 5.3, which is a solid number nowadays, with 10.21 million viewers. And those numbers were big ups over the last 2.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go. So it's the primetime matchup. The two biggest teams in basketball, the defending champs and the Lakers, the biggest star in the game, no other competition. It's just like a hurricane of circumstances that equaled great day for the NBA.
Perfect storm.
And I'll give the NBA credit. What they've done is they actually treat the day like a prize fight card. They actually are very thoughtful. You have Lakers Golden State as the heavyweight matchup at the top of the card. That's going to hit at whatever the tip off was, probably there around 8:30 or something. But they think about how the day builds, and you get your Bostons and your Philadelphias, and as the day goes on, the card gets better and it builds excitement to the marquee game.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. And you have it's like the prize fight. You don't put Tyson, in the undercard. You put Tyson, in the primetime slot. Today's Tyson may not be on any card, but you get my point.
Be on a Christmas card. It's a question about that. When do they schedule the timing of this? Right, because it feels like they did do a very good job of that. And I'm curious, were these times set in the schedule at the start of the season? Did they just get lucky there? Would it not make more sense for them to say, here are the teams that are going to be playing each other on that day? We'll announce the actual tip-off times, a month before.
Think about this, though.
What happened?
They announce it at the beginning of the year, and the reason is, automatically the Warriors are the NBA champs, and the Lakers, the LeBron-led Lakers, are the biggest ratings draw.
Sure.
So that ahead of time, and the rest of them you can kind of roll the dice and gamble on.
And as long as, and I think that the NBA really has, in recent years anyway, really become a league of 2 or 3 teams. Right, it's almost gone the way of baseball, where you've got a handful of teams that are interesting, and not many others. So from that standpoint, as these guys move, it was the Heat at one point, it was Oklahoma at one point, It was, it's Golden State now. Since free agency and these guys are drifting from team to team, then you really can tell at the start of the year what the key matchup is going to be, which I think is great for scheduling. Overall, I think it's bad for sports to have it sort of predetermined that way, but I think it does help them figure out what the marquee matchup will be.
Well, you brought that up, Ian, and I wanted to make sure that kind of ties into Chris's second question he asked, which we never answered. I think
way to go us.
Yeah, I think the reason why the NBA is growing is a confluence of things. It's number one, it's just easier to market the NBA because the players are much more in the forefront of the public consciousness, and there are fewer players on the field on the court, and you can see them. And a big star in the NBA can really drive a game more so than someone in the NFL or even baseball, except for maybe a pitcher. And so you have that, and then you have a lot of big personalities in the NBA that are involved in outside interests. We talked about that on the last show with LeBron James and stuff. And then also the NBA has remembered that it's just entertainment.
Right.
The NBA doesn't get involved in a bunch of other outside things. The NBA is in the business of putting basketball games on, and that's a good thing because nobody wants to see, a bunch of politics and a bunch of other things in their sports entertainment time. And that's, I think, another big reason. The NBA has wisely stayed out of that.
I would agree. I would agree that they focused on the Showtime aspects of it, which has been, what's helped drive NBA's, march the last 20, 30 years, really. So they take a much more that's entertainment approach to their sport in general. I also think what's interesting is when they came out of their lockout shortened season due to a labor dispute, they chose to kick off their season on Christmas Day. And so I think in many ways, their Christmas Day, obviously they've been playing basketball now for a couple of months, but it's early season. The cliche about a basketball game is really only interesting in the last quarter is also sort of true about the season. So, this kind of is their kickoff to their real year, in terms of their kind of sports entertainment packaging. So I think it has a bit of that as well. Also, listen, it's a lot easier to half pay attention to a basketball game than it is a football game. And so with distracted attention spans, et cetera, you throw on, used to be NBC, now ABC or ESPN, and you just kind of have it on and you kind of half pay attention in a way that, a football game kind of demands your attention more directly for a whole host of reasons. That's not a critique of the NBA, but I do think it's a reality here.
Christmas is kind of a natural kickoff for it seems to me, because there's a ton of competition in the fall.
Yeah.
Not just with the NFL, but, also baseball. You have the new baseball and you have the new television season, coming on, with all, the new shows and everything because that's competition. It's all entertainment.
School, the leaves are changing colors.
The leaves, yeah.
There's a lot going on in the fall.
Yeah. Whereas in the wintertime, football's going to be gone in a month. Baseball is gone. Hockey barely registers. Golf is gone. There's no golf on, on Sundays. And so they have a lot more time to themselves in the entertainment calendar.
The next highest rated thing on the day in the primetime hours was a rerun of Blackish, which just underscores your point. No one's running new content, so just a random rerun of a television sitcom was the next highest rated thing.
Yeah, well, I can subscribe to that because I had the TV on Christmas, and obviously I was going to sit down and watch the Laker game, but I watched the game before that too, or at least had it on because there was nothing else on, and so let's watch basketball. I think a lot of people do that.
I admit that my family engaged in the sacrilegious behavior of spending time with each other on Christmas and enjoying our company. We didn't contribute to any ratings this year.
There's one.
Somebody had to do it.
All right, so we'll move on to another seasonal sports tradition and go back of the house, pull back the curtain a little bit, and that is whatever, I think all of us are old enough to just remember this being bowl season, which is just such an antiquated thing, which Steve's going to update us on. So the quote-unquote tradition of our bowl culture, this quote-unquote playoff system, and basically the end of the college football season and the cash money behind it. Steve?
Yeah. Okay. First of all, let's say that the NCAA Division I football, which is now known as FBS for some weird reason, is literally the only NCAA run sport that does not hold its own championship series. It never has. If you go back way back on the Wayback Machine, decades ago, there was no playoff at all. There were bowl games on Christmas Day, and the AP voted, and whoever came out number one was declared the champion. That's how it worked. Then we went to the hated computer system, that automatically voted based on statistical analysis, and everybody hated that, and so we've come now to something called the College Football Playoff. And what I wanted everybody to know is that the College Football Playoff actually is owned by something called the College Football Playoff Administration, LLC, which is a for-profit company owned by, if you get this, blew my mind, owned by the 10 major college football conferences and the University of Notre Dame. And so, and their income, their revenue, just from a month is over $600 million. Okay? That's how much they're making. The huge part of that is coming from a $470 million ESPN contract, which, we've talked about this before. How is ESPN even staying afloat with all this money they're paying? But regardless, and so if you guys didn't realize this, the NCAA actually is not controlling this playoff system. This is a private for-profit company in which the major conferences, the 10 conferences, are earning revenue in a for-profit setting. Not only that, but about 75% of the revenue goes to the Power 5 conferences, and then all the rest of the conferences just pick up the scraps. It's like the dog under the table. When the dog's begging for a bit of your hamburger.
I know the dog.
That's what this playoff system is. And so what is going on here is that it's not just the rich getting richer. It's a case of essentially the Power 5 conferences are controlling the system. They own the system. They control the system, and they are keeping everybody else out. They're giving the table scraps in terms of money to everybody else. But this is why, if anybody ever wondered, is the playoff system going to expand? The answer is an affirmative yes. And the reason is that the estimates are that if they expanded it to even 8, the income would go to over $1 billion a year just for the playoff system. And what group of major conferences is going to turn that kind of money down? And so that is why the playoff system is eventually going to expand. It's going NCAA March Madness, which actually is run by the NCAA, makes about a little under $1 billion a year, and so it's about to become the biggest sports thing in the calendar. So I didn't know if anybody knew, that this is what's happening. The money is just for-profit money earned by the conferences. They pass out to the athletic departments, and everybody's getting rich, except for the players, of course, because they can't be paid.
I was told that this is all about the students.
Oh yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, it's Ohio State really cares about the academics of the football team.
It's
I'm
about
sure
the
Alabama is. Yeah,
That's
it's
right.
about academics. This is why I'm kind of down on college football, because if you're making $600 million a year, you're a professional organization, okay? And I mean, quite frankly, most of these players wouldn't. I shouldn't say most. A good number of these players would not be in the universities they are, except unless they're playing football. We all know what happens to the academics, and some of these guys. And so you have a for-profit entity making hundreds of millions of dollars, run by players who probably otherwise, most of them aren't college material. And yet somebody convinced me this is still amateur athletics. And somebody convinced me that if you're a little fish, like your UCF, who's 25-0 and hasn't lost in 2 years, why you aren't in the playoffs? Well, the answer is that your conference isn't in one of the groups that's making the 75% of the $600 million. That's why.
You're not powerful enough, and so you're not. If Steve, you and I don't often agree on things politically. Those of us who have known you and I for some time have recognized that from day one. You and I are in complete agreement on this. I have, for a long time, not paid attention to college sports, particularly football and basketball. The other ones I'm okay with, but the ones that are clearly exist for the purpose of revenue generation with little to no thought given to the student athletes, it's from my opinion, it's been a sham for a very long time.
I don't like the idea of everybody, people agreeing with me week after week. This is like the third week in a row. One of you has agreed with me.
You're
That
starting
bothers
to
me.
grow as a person, Steve, and we're
I don't like that.
We're proud of you.
Don't say that.
And we want to help you take a walk in this pool. The water's not bad. You're coming around. You're right. The rich are getting richer. The students are getting screwed. You're 100% correct, sir.
Chris?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I do feel like I do think you're moving, not us. Although I think, to be fair, I mean, this to your point, this is such level of, I mean, what you just described in terms of basically the corporation behind this is a whole layer of professionalism, scamminess, than just on what we already know college football to be already, which is pretty much maxed out at scamminess, for profit. So, I mean, what you just described about the playoff system isn't just business as usual in major college football over the last 30 to 40 years. This is next level capitalism overtake of
bullshit
of
is the word
amateur
you're looking
sport.
for, Chris. Bullshit. It's next level bullshit.
Oh, and this is just the first part of it, by the way. The other thing about this is the actual bowl games, okay? If anybody ever wondered why bowl games exist, this is the reason, okay? It's that these bowl games generate a massive amount of revenue, even the tidy bowls of the world, in which there's 5,000 people in the stands, because we've seen that this year in some of these bowl games. Even those games generate a massive amount of revenue, and the revenue goes back to the conferences. And in the case of the SEC, it's not exactly a communist, let's distribute everything to everybody system, but most conferences take the bowl revenue and they give it to all their schools equally. And the reason why there's a ton of revenue is that even if there's 5,000 people in the stands, the tickets are actually sold for the most part, because the bowl games, which are controlled by local businessmen it's a for-profit thing, they do give money to charity, but the bowl games are run by local businessmen for the most part and local corporations. And they make the universities buy the tickets, okay? And so, like, if your team goes to the Tidy Bowl and you are the University of, Central Arkansas, and you get to go face off with, Tennessee State, at Knoxville, or something in the Tidy Bowl, you have to buy the tickets. But what happens is the money from the playoff system trickles down, right? From the college football playoff system, trickles down and covers the cost you're losing. Because you have to fly your team out there, you have to buy the tickets. It costs a lot of money to go to a bowl game. That doesn't actually mean anything. But the money, you will get that money back in the form of revenue as a trickle-down feature from the college football playoff system. So everybody's making a ton of money, even if there's nobody in the stands.
You want to take this down the next level of the rabbit hole, Steve? Here's the next level of the rabbit hole. Why is it, with all of this money firing around from conference to conference and school to school, that an education in America is more expensive than anywhere else in the world, and people end up with tens of thousands of dollars in debt to go to school when they're making money hand over fist?
Well, it has nothing to do with education.
Sure.
It's about professionalism couched in the blanket of a hypothetical university system.
Yeah.
Well, also, the main reason is there's about 8 or 10 intentional firewalls between the majority of the money and anything resembling the university system, including its sports department.
Yeah, because this money doesn't go to the academic fund. All the money goes back into the academic department, or the athletic department, rather. And so this is why. So it's sort of. This is why I've been turned off of college football recently. It's because, the rich are going to constantly get richer. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. When all this money comes in, if you're a Power 5 school, you keep putting money into the best schools, or into the best facilities, the best locker room, the best everything. And your little team, the UCFs of the world, can't possibly compete with that, and they're going to stiff arm you and keep you out because they don't want you in the boys club. That's why that's why Utah, Boise State, UCF, all these little teams that have been undefeated, that's why they never get in, is because they really don't want teams like that as a part of it's like being in the cool clique in high school. You really we don't want you a part of it. And that's really what it's about.
It's a model that works. So one of the truisms that you'll find throughout history is that those who have power, the only thing that they care about is maintaining power. And the way that you do that is by shutting out the people who don't have power. And so you're seeing that in the bowl system, and it reflects everywhere in society.
And by the way, Notre Dame, I didn't mean to cut you off, Chris, but Notre Dame is a part of this. Notre Dame is basically an equal shareholder in terms of they're basically treated as a power conference in and of themselves. But go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
Yeah, they're the same as the SEC by themselves.
Yeah, basically.
And also, I have been turned up. I still get excited for college basketball, I will admit at times, although that has waned significantly. But my interest in college football is almost zero. For all the things that we've also said, but also they degrade the product this way. We've seen all of our conferences just destroyed so that the schools could line themselves in to have a chance to be in that Power Five, like what we've seen to the ACC and the Big East. So like we run roughshod over the traditions of, which does run deep, what conference you're in, who your rivals are, what your regional schools are. That's the lifeblood of these kinds of sports. That's been destroyed. This playoff system makes zero sense. 4 teams. The bowl games here. I'll run through some recent bowl game names with corporate sponsors. The Tax Slayer Gator Bowl, the Cheribundi Boca Raton Bowl, famous Idaho Potato Bowl, the Bad Boy Mowers Gasparilla Bowl.
What? Wait a minute. Read that again.
That's true. I'm not making this up. The Bad Boy Mowers Gasparilla Bowl.
The Bad Boy Mowers Gasparilla Bowl is now my favorite product.
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't exist anymore. But these are some great hits.
It's gone. How could it have failed with a name like that?
And this year, which ended up probably being, Twitter loved this bowl game for all the wrong reasons. But the bowl game anyone will remember in 2018 college football bowl season is the Cheez-Its Bowl, which is funny, just right, But who doesn't love Cheez-Its, right? It's a more emotional connection than Bad Boy Mowers.
Sure. Bowl of Cheez-Its is wonderful.
But it was a horrible game. It set a bowl game record for 9 interceptions, and at one point had a kicker benched between kicks. Like there was a penalty on one, the coach benched that kicker and brought it a different one post penalty. I mean, so it was weird, wacky, and so that's what we've been reduced to. The quality of this sport has been, now I guess people are getting rich and powerful. I understand all that, but the product is god awful.
And let's also say that these games are all meaningless, with the exception of the 4 playoff game or the 3 playoff games. I mean, the Gasparilla Bowl, whatever you said, the Power More Bad Boy Gasparilla is no meaning to anything at all. It's an exhibition, and it just has no relevance to anybody or anything. It's just so people can hang a trophy, hang a thing on their wall that says I participated in the Bad Boy Mowers Gasparilla Bowl in,
the Bad Boy Power Mower Gasparilla Bowl.
I mean, they used to mean something to the conferences. It was like conference versus conference, or they were essentially conference championship games. I mean, even the top 10 bowls actually had some kind of championship implication for its participants.
I think we can all agree that the system is sold out.
Well, and also, has anybody wondered why the NCAA isn't controlling this? Has anybody stopped and asked why? The NCAA is a not-for-profit corporation that was formed 50 years ago that all the university and all the conferences signed up for in order to give some sort of overarching control to college athletics. That's the purpose of the NCAA, and it's bastardized itself into something awful, with a bunch of Byzantine rules and all sorts of things, and they're doing things they shouldn't do in terms of investigations and blah blah blah. But has anybody stopped and wondered why Division I college football is the only NCAA sport, literally only NCAA sport that the NCAA does not host a championship? You want to know why that is?
Let me tell you why. I don't think that the question is why. I think the question is how are they getting the money.
Well, the why is because the Power 5 conferences threatened to leave the NCAA if they were not allowed to form their own corporation and run it themselves, okay? Because the NCAA is a voting body. The NCAA is like the UN, and it used to be that every university had one vote, and there were 350-something universities are all part of the NCAA, and now it's gone to something where the conferences, you have a representative, and it's by conference, and the big conferences went to the NCAA and said, we will leave. We will not be a part of the NCAA, and we are going to run our own little professional organization if you do not let us take most of the money. And that threat is what turned into the college football playoff system, and it became, what did I say the name of the company was? The College Football Playoff Administration, LLC. It was born out of the threat to leave because we're not making enough money, and if you don't let us make the money, we're going to leave. That's why all of this has happened.
Merry Christmas.
Have fun, Merry Christmas, kids. It's all about student athletes.
It's about the students.
So go forth and enjoy the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. The Tax Slayer.
Tax Slayer.
All right. So it is obviously the end of 2018. It's been a busy year. And as you're wont to do, you reflect, you look back, you make predictions going forward. So we are going to join that yearly cliche and do our own version of that. So first we'll go around and share maybe one of our favorite It's Just Business stories or style stories from 2018. So first we will do a look back. John, why don't you kick us off?
I think the biggest or most interesting maybe story of the year to me was the fact that various leagues have started to get over their basic moral instincts and head to the money. And I'm talking about the legitimacy of gambling entering into the sports arena. You're starting to see more and more leagues begin to embrace building affiliations with gambling, obviously, in order to get some of the money. So there's always been money in sports gambling. There always will be money in sports gambling. And I think that a real corner has been turned in society in terms of stopping the sort of the fight against gambling as a vice, and now they're beginning to embrace it as a source of revenue. I think that to me is the big story of 2018.
I'm so happy to say that we vehemently disagree again, John.
Hooray!
Yeah, the world is right again. I can't tell you how much I hate the entrance of gambling into sports like this. I can't tell you how much I hate the idea. First of all, I think it is a vice. It should be treated as a vice. I don't think the government and the society should be encouraging people to gamble. But what I really hate is the involvement of gambling houses, direct involvement with gambling houses with leagues.
I have
I think that's
terrible news for you, Steve, which is that we're in complete agreement. I don't like the fact that gambling.
I thought I had found. I thought I'd found it.
We're slowly becoming like any old married couple, the same person. I think that it's terrible for sports. I don't think that gambling has any place in sports. I think that it encourages people to get into things for the wrong reasons. It encourages behaviors. You get people throwing games. There's point shaving. There's crap. I want my sports to be about one group of people or one person trying to best another group of people or another person. I really don't want anything influencing that. And I feel like adding gambling into the mix in a legitimate way is going to lead to more of that. Not that it's not already happening.
I'm so disappointed.
I know. I'm sorry, man. This is my next Christmas. My present to you will be vehement disagreement on any number of topics.
Because the natural contrarian in me really likes that.
That's good. Yeah, I get it. I'm with you.
I
agree.
Let the record show that I am the only non-nanny stater here, by the way. So you guys have, it's like a nanny state cocktail hour over here.
Nannies are terrific.
All right. So, Steve, give us your look back story.
Okay. This most certainly isn't my favorite story because it's a tragic story, but I thought it was the most important story of the year to me. And I do agree, John, that the gambling's a big deal, obviously. But the USA gymnastics story was so tragic, and it was so devastating to so many people, and it was an exhibition of complete, utter criminal negligence. And it brought down probably, this is just me maybe being a bit hyperbolic, but I brought down probably the most popular American Olympic sport, which is women's gymnastics. And as we speak today, the USA Gymnastics is in the midst of being decertified by the United States Olympic Committee, and it's about to file bankruptcy. And so the sport has been ruined, over what started with Larry Nassar, who is, there's a special place in hell for him, for sure. But the other people involved in this, there was a systematic, intentional ignoring of a problem at the university level, at the USA Gymnastics level, and at the U.S. Olympic Committee level. By the way, they're not innocent. They're just protecting themselves because they let this happen too. They're in charge and they let this happen. And so it's, and by the way, let's talk about the hundreds of little girls who had their lives turned upside down. Don't forget about that. So it's a tragic story, and I think it's one that's sort of gone out of the public consciousness in the past couple of months because the Larry Nassar trial is over, and the Olympics is in a down cycle. But to me, a tragic story, awful, and that's my number one story of the year for all the wrong reasons.
I agree with you completely, and I think that we're seeing there is a systemic pattern that goes across. So it's not only USA Gymnastics, right? We had Penn State, we have the Catholic Church, we have situations where institutions are systematically covering up bad behaviors, and I feel like the reason why they do that is because to them it is preferable to try to hide it than it is to expose it and fix it. And I think that that's a problem. I think that there needs to be a fundamental shift in the way that we address these kinds of things, because I think that too many institutions are, for whatever reason, being incentivized to try to hide these problems rather than find ways to root them out and address them.
Yes, I have not much more to add to that, but that what's been already said, we discussed on previous episodes, and I expect we will revisit in the coming year as well, as the story continues to unfold. My look back story is really we are just in a Wild West phase in terms of what TV viewership and even movie viewership, honestly, is going to be. The fracturing of the exponential growth and fracturing of the content and how you consume content is so fascinating. And at first that might just seem like a broader entertainment industry story, and of course it is. But because stuff that happens live and that you need to see live is still huge in the content world, and sports is one of the only things that will never lose that aspect of it and is part and parcel to what it is. Sports is a huge playing chip in these content wars and the fracturing of these markets. And you're already seeing whether it's the Amazon NFL contract or what HBO is doing to expand their sports or thinking about it or whatever it is. You're seeing the ownership of sports TV contracts and basically content broadcast contracts become a huge chip in this continuing landscape. And of course, the Disneys of the world, along new players like Amazon and Netflix and Apple, will all be involved and will ultimately probably win or consolidate amongst themselves. But it is a really fascinating time right now. And I think sports and the sports media properties are really in the top 3 to 5 content pieces that are driving a lot of these decisions.
Here's what I'd say about this, and I like that one. I think that one's very good. If you go back to the last round of major NFL TV contracts, which happened around the time of the last collective bargaining agreement, in 2010, 2011, and they don't come up incidentally again until 2021, and so we're kind of in a downtime right now in terms of major broadcast rights negotiations, but expect that to ramp up in early 2020 probably. But if you go back to that time, nobody cared about streaming rights whatsoever. It was barely even mentioned. The technology wasn't there. Nobody thought about it. And in the intervening years, meaning the sports leagues, have had to figure out how to sell them, in kind of a part and parcel sort of way, because it wasn't a part of the big overall strategy back when these contracts were negotiated now 7-8 years ago. And so, but I think the streaming rights for the NFL, for example, when it comes back up in 2021, is going to be a huge part of the overall broadcast rights strategy that the NFL pursues. Huge. And I think they'd be dumb, for example, to continue with the DirecTV only thing. That would be stupid. They ought to sell it to everybody. The online streaming rights, how the networks react to that, because Fox and CBS don't really want you watching streaming games on pick your platform, Amazon Prime. They don't really want that. They want you to turn on the television, and so there's going to be a fight, and it's going to reduce, I think, the value, the relative value on a present day dollar basis of the TV rights package, because so many people are streaming now. And so that's going to be very interesting. Can't wait for that to come up on the show.
No, there's lots of opportunities to talk about this more. And just from this time last year to this year, you've seen such an uptick in these issues already. And that's even without big contracts on the table.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's going to be fascinating. Can't wait for it.
All right. So that kind of transition us into, looking forward, a prediction, something that you think we'll be talking about in 2019. John.
I want to go last because your take on 2018 made me rethink my prediction for 2019. So I don't want to steal anyone else's prediction. So what I'm going to do is listen to your predictions, and then I will make my prediction, and I will not agree with Steve.
Wow, live horse trading.
I'm just glad that you're not agreeing with me. That makes me happy. My prediction is going to run sort of contrary to the last story we did, because I just spent 20 minutes talking about college football and how the playoff system is going to expand. I showed you why monetarily. That having been said, I think my prediction here is that there's going to be a lot more talk about the need to expand the college football playoff system, but it will not happen for the next year. And the reason I say that is as much as universities like money, it's also sort of like moving in glacier. Nobody does anything fast, and there's not enough time, and they're going to wring their hands about it for another year. But I think you're going to see a huge uptick in calls for expansion of the playoff system, but they just aren't going to get their act together enough, and we're going to suffer through another year of a 4-team playoff system. So that's my prediction.
All right, so I will jump in here. I predict that Peyton Manning will be a color guy in an NFL booth in 2019. There is no iconic voice in NFL broadcasting right now. The ESPN's Monday night package has been an unmitigated disaster. Troy Aikman has, been there, done that. He's fine. Tony Romo, I think, has done better than people expected, but he's also, he's Tony Romo. He's always going to, milquetoast is his middle name. So I think they need star power in the booth. ESPN has basically test-driven him on whatever kind of stupid coach's tape show he does, I think for one of their pay pieces, if I'm not mistaken. But the NFL needs an iconic voice. Peyton Manning is already an iconic player and already an iconic media voice anyway. We, come hell or high water, we will see him broadcasting NFL games weekly in 2019.
You know what? He's really good at it, too, because I saw a breakdown of him. It was at ESPN, somewhere, and where that dude can break down film like nobody's business. He'd be really good at it. And I'll take this opportunity to agree with you on with the Monday Night Football disaster.
Horrible.
It's just been awful. Jason Witten is terrible. He's unlistenable. The Booger McFarlane mobile adds absolutely nothing. It's just a gimmick. They don't have an iconic name in the booth. The Monday Night Football has had iconic names going all the way back to Howard Cosell, Don Meredith, Al Michaels. These guys are giants in the world of sports broadcasting, and they don't really have – they've got Jason Witten, and a dude with broken fingers in a cart moving up and down, that's blocking everybody's view, in the stadium. So that would be a great move. I don't know if Peyton wants to do it, but I'd like to see it.
I think that's why he spent a year doing that coach's tape show. I think it's basically been his training.
Peyton's great. I think he'd do a good job.
All right, John. Now you got your
all right.
Your nanny state welfare bonus to go last
in 2019. So stealing completely from your favorite story. I think that one of the big four sports is probably won't be NFL because, as Steve mentioned, they're not in the right cycle for contracts, and I don't know necessarily who is, but I think that you're going to have at least one major sport is going to announce a significant game-changing broadcast deal with Amazon through their Twitch service that is going to allow people, most likely with Amazon Prime or through some sort of package, to be able to watch games on Twitch either live or after the fact. I think that's something that if it doesn't happen in 2019, it will at least be announced in 2019 that it will be happening in 2020.
I mean, first of all, I don't know what Twitch is. I've heard the name, and I know it's a gaming platform, and you watch a lot of video games on it. But I think that kind of flows with the idea of how important streaming rights are. And so, from a conceptual standpoint, I hear you. That platform in particular, I don't.
You're
really
far
know
too old to have any idea what I'm talking about, and that's fine. I don't begrudge you your increasing age, Steve.
You're older than me, just for the record. But go ahead.
Shut up. People can't see me. I sound young because I say Twitch, and therefore I also know about the sports. So it's but I really do. So I watch Overwatch League on Twitch. The experience is very good because I can get links to matches that have already taken place without getting spoilers on what happened, and I'm able to watch it through on my TV, on my computer, on my phone, at work. Ideally, nobody at work knows that I do this podcast, and it's not, but I could conceptually watch at work. It's a very good platform for watching sports, and there's already Amazon has sort of broken that cherry with the Thursday Night Football deal on Prime, and I think that they're going to take that a step further, probably with one of the smaller leagues, NBA, NHL.
What's interesting about Twitch and anything is that these mega tech companies, something like Twitch proves that the platform has been tested, right? The pipes work. They're at scale. They've got numbers that would equal these, sporting events already with the games. And they're regional. Not regional by geography, but regional by game. So they understand how to target within their pipeline, whether it's, in a sports context, per team, per region. They know how to kind of itemize within their platform. So I think, a lot of these tech giants that have built the pipes maybe for something else means that they're ready to be flipped on for bigger scale.
Yeah, I think I'm the only person in America who does not subscribe to Amazon Prime.
You might.
So I am whatever. If it goes to Twitch, I will not be able to watch it. Hopefully, it will remain on television somewhere. Because I'm not going to subscribe to Amazon Prime because I am a contrarian. It's mainly because everybody else does that I don't.
That's right. There's a lot of things I've learned about you, Steve. That
those of you who know me well know that is.
He enjoys paying more for shipping.
Well, everyone else drives cars.
Those of you who know me well know that this is perfectly within character.
All my neighbors mowed their lawns.
So that's my life. That is sort of my worldview. If you're doing it, I don't really want to do it.
I'm down with that.
So
I agree, Steve.
The new Jack Ryan joint didn't motivate you?
No. The Jack Ryan stuff has been long ago ruined from what Tom Clancy originally wrote in the books.
Is this the one with Jim from The Office?
Yes.
I don't even watch it. It's a complete waste of time.
Yes, it is Jim from The Office, though, as Jack Ryan. All right, with that, we will, Happy New Year. By the time that you are probably putting this into your ears, it will be 2019. So Happy New Year and a healthy one to kick off. And we have full confidence that the world of sports and business and media will give us many topics to yammer on about in this coming new year. Any parting shots?
That's my prediction, is that there will be more stories in 2019.
There's a safe one.
Yeah, that's it.
Going out on a limb.
Way to go out on a limb. Yeah,
Shit'll happen.
No, I mean, listen, Happy New Year to everybody. I hope you had a good year, and hopefully it will be a good year to come.
All right. See you in 2 weeks.